Instagram started off really like sharing a picture of your food, and nowadays people started to form jobs out of it.
We know more of what we want to be. We're trying to find out who we want to be in the end. So trophy means nothing anymore because just by showing up, even if you didn't get in the field, you get a trophy. Hello, this is Dr. Triple O, your host. Today's topic is Generation Divide, Gen Z Misunderstood. I have 4 folks here today to discuss that topic. This should be very interesting. The category Generation Z is oversimplified. Not everyone within that category fits that general misconception or perception. And this happens with every other generation. So what we're talking about today is just that general perception of the group, and it doesn't reflect every individual in that group. Now, who is Generation Z? These are folks that was born between 1996 and 2015. And what does it really mean when we talk about Generation Z? As a business owner, and I know a few of my friends who own businesses, there's a perception amongst the employers that Generation Z are bratish, undisciplined, lazy, and that's the perception. And the question is why? I have personal experiences where, folks apply for a job. I invite 10 people for interview and no one showed up. Or maybe one showed up and that one that showed up goes, what is this job about again? And there's a lack of unpreparedness and lack of professionalism, and a lot of employers and managers are seeing that over and over again. So that's the perception of Generation Z. I want to hear from my guests here what you think about that. What's your thoughts on that? We can start with Brandon here.
Thank you, Dr. So I think there is a huge misconception for the younger generation and the divide between the older generation here. So I think the younger generation, we try to be more innovative. We try to find different ways to do harder jobs to make them easier. But it's not always going to be a perfect fit because I feel that there's so many job opportunities out there or, different companies, the younger generation tries to find a perfect fit that may not always be for them. So they may come for something unprepared where, what this may not be for me versus, the older generation is, we're just here to, find employment. I think, I hate to reference it back to COVID, but I think 2020, everyone kind of took a big break in what they were really looking for in life out of where it wasn't focused more on what can I do for the corporations, more so what the corporation can do for me. All right, so I think there was a huge switch in between that, which now the younger generation is switching to it. Even for my personal self, I'm a little bit older. I'm right around 30 years old. I'm a millennial, so I'm kind of in between, the Generation Z and the older generation of how I put forward my work ethic, right? So I get up early in the morning. I make sure that, I'm putting my best foot forward with my employer and doing everything else, but it's not always thinking about what's best for the company, so what's best for me and everything that I'm doing. And I think we've had a huge switch to have the last couple of years where we care more about our personal well-being, our mental health, our physical being, and then we're not finding that fit within companies, which is why we have a lot of jumping around, right? So where you might be with an employer for now 2 to 3 years versus, you have people who've been there 20, 30 years and them for a lifetime. How's this, Sophia, too? Okay, take your take.
Well, I feel like with what Brandon was saying with COVID, so I feel like when I could remember was kind of like old enough to enter the job force. COVID hit, or it was right before COVID, but then COVID hit, and I feel like people maybe got too relaxed or they got too comfortable within their own personal space or their own homes. So they could have also formed like misconceptions on what they thought the job force was going to be like. I feel like Gen Z is more of a generation that they don't want to sacrifice too much. They don't want to, make themselves more uncomfortable. They want to, keep themselves in that comfortable spot. So when they entered the job force and they found out, you got to work a 9 to 5 or you got to work longer hours, or maybe not such longer hours, but you have to work maybe in a business setting. Maybe they didn't realize that that's how it was going to be. I also question a lot whether it came down to a lot of parenting too, you know, because back in the day, I mean, you guys, I don't know what generation you're from, but you guys grew up in a very different way. So I also feel like maybe Gen Z in their own childhood, they had things too easy. You know, I do believe that it could be the way they grew up and they didn't really see that there were actual problems in this world, or that how the world was really like. And when they went out, you know, when they grew up and they started adulting, it was like they crashed with it. You know, maybe they didn't understand how it was going to be. That's, you know, that's what I believe.
I have a pretty interesting perception as to how I perceive my own generation in the workforce. And the reason is, I think it could date a little bit beyond COVID. I think COVID was just the exclamation mark at the end of that statement to an extent. I mean, as far back as I could remember being in the American educational system, there was always some form of special accommodation for people who had obstacles, whether it was a form of dyslexia or a form of ADD. You know, they would have extra time on their tests. And I think one of the things employers and today's leaders are finding when my generation in particular is coming into the workforce is we're not giving those special accommodations anymore. And we have prepared a group of people to be accommodated. And that's an issue because real world examples and real world situations are becoming less and less prevalent in the way we are training our young adults to, you know, for adulthood and how we're preparing them for life. You know, I think that goes on to parenting as well beyond just the workforce. I mean, when was the last time anyone here could remember, you know, a group of kids consistently knocking at your door every 5 minutes on Halloween? You know, that doesn't happen as much. You know, I think parents are sheltering kids more and more. And yes, despite us being perceived as lazy and despite us being perceived as unprepared, I think we did a lot of that to ourselves during COVID, but could you really blame us? We've been sheltered our whole lives. We've been spoon-fed a lot of things and accommodated for a lot of things as well. And I think that's starting to show in today's workforce.
Very interesting when you talk about accommodation. And Brandon mentioned earlier, finding, you know, Gen Z is kind of more looking at through a lens of what is good for me? What is it that is going to, you know, fit my agenda, fit my growth? How am I going to get to this next stage? And our generation tends to be a little bit more selfish in that sense, you know, relating back to everything you guys said. And we have kind of grown up being in a society where we, you know, have everything at our fingertips. I mean, everybody says it. Our parents say it, you know. Every time my dad's from Greece, he came over when he was 17, and you know, everything I had growing up, he was always like, you know, I didn't have this, I didn't have this, and I understand, and it makes me grateful. But I do think with the knowledge that, or with the kind of entitledness that comes with our generation, it also does kind of spark a vision of we know more of what we want to be. We're trying to find out who we want to be and what we want to do. And we're taking that entitledness and we're pushing it forward. That's why you're seeing people become wealthy in the most strangest ways. We are seeing influencers make more money than generations of families. People that are just dancing on TikTok or people who are making videos on YouTube. And it's gotten to this point because it's possible, because we have the exposure. So there's a good side and the bad side. There's the discipline, there's the lack of discipline within our generation, but there also is the exposure in our generation that has, you know, given people the ability, the chance to kind of be unconventional. But a little bit of both. Yeah, both sides, I would say.
All right, those are great points. And you know, you guys mentioned social media, COVID pandemic. We'll come back to those two topics later on. But let's focus on social media for now. We didn't really have social media in our generation. You guys do that. You do have that. And what that does is give you more options than for us. We have to get a newspaper. We got to go through, you know, to make phone calls. You guys, you know, just one little push. You have options of thousands of opportunities. Like you said, you would now go for things that are, you know, it's more of a selfish approach to how you look at things as opposed to when we were growing up, it's small, what can we do for the company or the corporation? I would say that there's also some of the points you raised in terms of the accommodation that you guys were exposed to. We didn't have accommodation. There's no such thing in the older generation. These are the things you need to get done, and you can get it done, no question asked. Now, you can't pass your test. They try and give you extra time to do it. In the older days, well, you fail. Nobody seemed to want to care and pull you back. Nowadays, you play sports. Everybody gets a trophy. When we play sports, you have to actually win to get a trophy. So I think a lot of these things have created a situation whereby you feel entitled. And so when you go get a job whereby the older generations are running that job, their expectation is different. They want you to come in, they want you to prove yourself before they will give you something. But you're coming in with a different perception, like, well, I'm entitled to get this, I need to get this. So I think that's created that conflict. But both generations needs to kind of sit down and have a conversation, understand where they're coming from to solve the problem. It's okay to be selfish, it's okay to want something, but you also have to understand if the business doesn't survive, you won't have a job. And so there has to be a mutual understanding and respect for what's truly needed. Social media is great, but I think it's also bad. And I wanted to guys to comment on that briefly, because not everything you see on social media is actually true. People will post things online thinking they're making so much money, but not everybody that posts something online makes money. And posting something online it's not as easy as people think. For you to make money, you still have to do the work.
Yeah.
And sometimes people think, oh, social media, I don't have to do it. No. You have to do work. Even in real estate, people say, I want to invest in real estate. I don't have to do anything. No, you do. You got tenants. You got to fix things. There's still a lot of work. There's no way you can make money by just sitting around. So how does social media, how is social media affected your decision in how to approach a job or look for a job or in your planning for the future?
Social media is an interesting one. I'm someone who hasn't been on social media for over a year, so I think my answer might be a little bit outdated, to an extent. That said, I remember social media was one of the best assets I had during the pandemic to be and get creative. There was a point in the pandemic where I was so bored, I picked up working out in my home garage. And all my workouts came from gym influencers on social media who were teaching me how to do push-ups the proper way, what's the proper form to lift a dumbbell for a dumbbell curl and things like that. But to that point, I noticed I became so obsessed with doing things so perfectly because it needed to be just the way that influencer depicted it. And to Stathi's point, a lot of these influencers, they're only posting the perfect take, so you don't really see them messing up that form when they're doing something as stupid as a dumbbell curl. So I think social media is a great tool for education. I think social media is a great tool for a lot of things, but you got to take it with a grain of salt, like everything else in life. There's good to it and there's also bad to it. So to speak on the bad, I think social media has connected us a little bit too much to the point where we're not really focused on deeper, more meaningful connections. Like Stathi was saying, not everything is, perfect on social media, and you don't really see what happened before it was posted. So to that, yes, social media is great. It's a great asset. I've done just fine the past year without it. Maybe I'm at a disadvantage, but I'd like to believe I'm headed in the right direction in life. So who knows?
Well, social media, in my case, I got into social media when I was I think I was 13. And my first platform was Instagram because my parents didn't let me have Facebook. So I don't even know how to use Facebook, right? So I use, the traditional social media apps. And Instagram started off really sharing a picture of your food or sharing innocent pictures. And nowadays people started to form jobs out of it and stuff. And what you said is that a lot of people are finding inspiration but they're finding inspiration and they believe it's easy, right? And social media is a great platform for inspiration. And, you know, it's even a search engine nowadays. Like more and more people are using TikTok or Instagram and they don't even use Google nowadays, you know? So it's definitely a good place for inspiration. But what people don't realize is that nobody's life is perfect. And even if they do want to influence or they want to do those jobs that aren't as easy, there's so much work to it. I would even say there could be more work to it, you know, like influencing isn't easy. And then when you're influencing, you have a lot of power on yourself too. So what you say is really important. And if you say one thing wrong, you have a whole crowd on you and they're very hateful. And especially Gen Z, I feel like Gen Z really, what motivates them is hate nowadays. Like you'll see like the posts that have more comments are posts that are really controversial or posts that, you know, even give out more hate. It's not even the positive posts. Or the positive post will do good, but it's because, oh, that post kind of made me cry. You know, like you'll see the dog. Oh, this dog got run over. And then, you know what I mean?
There's an emotional.
Yeah. So what people don't understand is that, you know, it's tough work and everything you do has strategy behind it. And yeah, I guess you kind of can start posting or doing whatever you want to do, or real estate or finance. You could do it the easy way, like you said. But it's not going to get you to the point where you want to be, you know, like you really got to, whatever you're going to choose to do, you got to do it, but with a strategy, like you really got to put your mind to it. And social media, you know, is good for that. Like, for example, when we started the business, we used a lot of social media to even search up kind of what services other agencies offer, or like how do other agencies offer these services. But, you know, to really kind of stand out, you got to get everything that you find on these platforms. And you got to kind of like inform yourself more about it, you know, put your own finishing touch to it. But people kind of just want to copy what everyone else does. Oh, he does real estate and he invests in Texas, so I'm going to invest in Texas, you know? And there's so many other points and other ways to like actually find out what's the best. But I feel like with social media, our generation kind of just really wants the easy way out. And, you know, what they're finding out is that the easy way out isn't going to get them to where they really want to go, because they're also seeing all these fake lifestyles on Instagram. So they're like, oh, I'm going to do this. This is easy. But wait, why is my life not like theirs? Well, maybe they put in more work. You know, maybe they had a strategy. They actually did something for once, you know. That's my take, you know.
What do you think, Brandon?
I have lots to agree with Sophia on that piece. Social media can be a great tool, but it can also take you down a deep, dark road. You can use it in positive ways, but it can also become an addiction, right? I mean, before, back in the day, you had video recorders, camcorders, whatever, and then we kind of moved into the way of now watching a 60 or 30-second video on TikTok or Instagram and constant reels and constant information going. It's now where your attention span is only good for so much. So, kind of bringing it back to, let's look at it in a positive light. And so we get information almost instantaneously now, right? No matter where you are in the world, it can be a great tool for education, whether it's for employment, educating yourself about a hobby, in Nick's case, you know, working out. It's great for any of that. But on the flip side, to Sophia's point, your life becomes a comparison. You think that it can come easy, it can come the next day because someone, they said, might be buying a real estate in Texas, so I'm going to go ahead and do it without fully getting all the information available. Kind of bringing it back to the older generation where, you know, you use resources, you ask people, you read about it. It took you a lot longer to have a process with something. Say, for you starting a business, right? A lot of research went into it versus ours is we just get it from online, right? But may not be getting the best resource at all times. So you have to pick apart and dissect what is the best information for you. So now circling it back to employment, when you're on social media, you can look up anything for your job. You can look up tips and tricks. If you're in sales, you can look up sales practices, but you have to kind of apply it back to yourself. It's not, you can't compare yourself to someone who's doing the same thing as you because it may not work for you, right? So we have this whole perception of instant gratification, instant serotonin boost, trying to really make social media our life living, but that's not the case. You kind of need to bring it back to reality and see the picture for it truly is and find what works out best for you. So with Gen Z, I mean, you have younger kids constantly on their phones with their Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, no longer Twitter, X, right? Just constant feed of information, but they need to take a step or take a break from it and kind of see what the reality is. Go from there.
Great points. Anything that you guys said it well. I mean, social media is great, but it can also be very bad. And we're going to move on to COVID pandemic, the effect of COVID pandemic. During the pandemic, everything shut down for a year. So employment was pretty much from home. So a lot of you folks maybe got your first job at that time or after. So what you knew was working from home, or in a hybrid form of working from home and working in the office. So post-COVID, now people are like, well, I loved what I did back then. I love working from home. I love working partly from home on the office. I don't want to spend all my days in the office. And so it's very difficult for the older generation who all they knew was work from the office.
Work at work.
Correct. In fact, when they worked at home, they were not very productive because they were watching TV, they couldn't concentrate, the kids were running around screaming. So their expectation is that they want Gen Z to be in the office. Gen Z said, no, I'd rather be at home. I have access to the computer, to my smartphone. So there is a disconnect or a conflict between those generations when it comes to that. And I think both generations need to understand that. We need to understand where you guys coming from, what that exposure has done to your thinking, and also in addition to what you mentioned before, that the accommodation that you guys were given growing up in school that we didn't have. That sense of, hey, Johnny, here's a trophy for just taking part in the sport, even though you lost. With us, you have to play all the games and win before you can get a trophy. So trophy means nothing anymore because just by showing up, even if you didn't get on the field, you get a trophy. But now when you go to work, the expectation that you don't get any trophy, you got to work there for 2 years. You got to produce. You got to make sure the company makes money before we can give you a bonus. But you don't understand that. I go, well, why come I'm not getting it? I've been getting it for the last 20, 25 years of my life. So it becomes a conflict. So and I think there has to be a way to kind of educate you guys. And the reason for doing this podcast is really to tell you what the older generations are thinking, to hear your perspective, enlighten the older generation about the way you're thinking, and also be enlightened by their life experiences of what they've gone through. And in doing so, come up with a compromise or a solution to the problem. Because, mind you, AI is coming. So what's happening right now is a lot of the employers don't have folks to work or can't get someone to work. In response, they're investing into AI to do the jobs that people would do. Some of these folks who are not trying to work right now, who are very picky, those jobs will not be around in a few years. But you're not prepared or trained to do anything else. So what will happen in a few years? What will happen 5 years down the road? What are your thoughts about the impact of AI in your future? Let me start with you, Brandon.
Well, for AI, I think it depends on the occupation you choose, right? You'll always need a physician, anyone in the medical field. You always need an attorney. For my case, I'm a financial advisor. You always need someone physical to talk to, right? Some people may not feel comfortable always doing something online. But I kind of want to go back to the first thing you said. I think with COVID and working from home, I think we all got used to a luxury of being able to work from home. And I'm not knocking anyway. I did work from home for about a year or so. I'm a very social person. I like to be out there. So for me, I'm very client facing. So when you're sitting in the house and you're twiddling your thumbs, you want the urge to go out and do things. I think we got spoiled with the luxury of then corporations trying to come back and say, hey, let's bring everybody back to office, where my generation is saying, hey, I can accomplish the same exact job sitting from my home office.
Yeah.
Why do I need to go into the office to complete the same tasks? Reality is, in an 8 to 9 hour workday, doing physical work may only take you 2 to 3 hours to do, and the rest, maybe talking to your coworkers, going around, sending emails, doing a couple of phone calls. There's a lot of downtime that's in between where work from home was all consolidated. And to my point earlier of mental health, physical awareness, I think we took a step back saying, okay, now that the job is done, what can I do for me now? Which a lot of corporations in mind, for example, they take mental and physical health very seriously. Right? So being in a corporate office, you might be stuck there. You might not have an outlet to express. So we have facilities, we have therapists, we have psychologists that you can talk to help you through all these different matters to help kind of bring the employees back and then entice them to come, work for them. Gen Z and millennials, I think we're very large in numbers, that we have the ability to make change for a lot of the older ways of how things used to be run. And now the corporations have a lot of play where they need to meet us somewhere in the middle, saying, what can we do to make life better? I'm not saying we're having nap pods in our lobby, right? But it's small steps to making it a better work environment. I think we're more outspoken. We have no problem telling it how it is, speaking up for what we stand right for, where in the past, may have been taboo to say something to the employer because you're worried about losing your job, change may not happen, or this isn't a fit for you. Well, we're kind of reversing that and saying, well, same way, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. What can we do for each other to make this better for growth? Because I want to be a long-term employee. I want to help the company grow. I want to do that for myself, focus on my career. But if it's not going to be a right fit, someone else will do it. And I think tying it back to social media, we have information almost immediately available. So there's other people in my same exact situation who I can relate to or talk to and know what's going on, saying, hey, I'm not alone in this. Take a stand on what you believe in. All right. So I think we have great motivation in everything we do. It may not just be taken the right way by other generations in the way we're outlooked. Because we're wanting things done now, today, yesterday, our world is moving very fast, where change may not come so easily because of, how the old generation did things, right? Slower information process, slower decision making, and ability to not make once change because you're used to certain lifestyles, certain parameters of how you used to operate. Change can be scary, but that's never going to change. There will be generations after us who will, request different things. Our generation might be considered the ones who are considered taboo because we're not confiding to what the newer generation wants. So I think you're always going to find that gap, but we have to meet somewhere in the middle where we both find mutual ground to agree on. Right? I work in an environment where I have folks who are in their late 70s, early 60s, and I have people underneath me who are fresh out of college. And I think we all find synchrony in some of the same things, whereas the old generation teach us one thing and the younger generation teaches us another, and we apply both those concepts to succeed.
Great pointers, Sophie.
Well, going back to like the work from home thing. So I do agree with what Brandon says. So now a lot of people say that, oh, well, what I could do in the office, I could do from home, which can be true, right? And then what you said is that, something about like productivity. And I feel like this generation is still like, I feel like nothing has changed from yours to this one in terms of productivity for working from home. I feel like this generation isn't that productive or as productive as they think that they might be at home. So they do have more distractions, At the office, you might be less distracted, but, I also agree that, what you do at the office and takes you 8 hours to do because, you're talking to your coworkers, which is also a distraction. It could take you 2 hours if you really sit down at your house and eliminate those distractions, but I still do believe that whether you try to eliminate those distractions or not, sometimes it is important to go to the office because there's things that you do better at the office, but there's also things you could do better at home, I feel like, it's a mix, there's positives and negatives to both aspects. I also do believe that people also want instant gratification. So, going to the office for 8 hours a day might be exhausting for them. Maybe they're like, oh no, well, I'm not getting that much dopamine, because, this generation is really, really addicted to dopamine rushes. And at home, okay, I'll do the job. It takes me about 15 minutes and then I can take a break from my phone. Or I could watch TV or I could do whatever else brings on dopamine rushes, But I feel like that's really the issue that's happening in the job force right now is the addiction to dopamine rushes and instant gratification that they might not be getting in the office. Because in the office, there will be times where you're not doing work. You're going to have to talk to your coworker or see what else you could keep your mind occupied on. This generation is kind of really accustomed to having their mind occupied. And as for AI, also goes to the same thing. Like people want things easy, so they're using more ChatGPT or other AI platforms, that are coming out. And yeah, eventually AI will replace a lot of jobs. I also feel that, the more generations that are coming, like the more people are getting older and then other younger generations, the more they're gonna become lazier or like used to instant gratification. So the more they're going to be using AI. I mean, we'll see what how that impacts our future or their future as well. But, what I do know for sure is that it's going to be more and more and more used as people get older.
I think there needs to be a balance between a at-home work environment and an in-office work environment. To Brandon's point, there are some things that you need to do in the office. It's a lot easier to do in the office. If you have a client-facing job, it's a lot more beneficial to sit at a desk, have your client in front of you, shake their hands, walk them through what you have planned for them, etc. As for me, the kind of finance I do, it's more analysis. It's not so much client focus. I'm dealing with the internal financing of the corporation I work for and how we present it to our stakeholders. I'm painting a picture as opposed to creating a strategy for growth. And to that point, the kind of finance I do, I've found a lot of the things I need to do, I don't need to be in the office for. It's a lot more efficient for me to wake up in my pajamas, sit at my desk, work through all the spreadsheets I need to work through, send the emails I need to send, and by the time the clock hits 12, I'm pretty much done with the day. That's all I have to do. I make myself available in case I get pinged from my boss, or I take, opportunities that I'm still technically on the clock, so I make myself proactive, see if anyone needs help. I check in on the interns, see how they're doing. Are they learning? What's something I can do to provide value for the corporation? But a lot of people aren't like me in that sense. A lot of people take that time to sit down and watch TV or go 15 minutes on their phone for that dopamine rush. And that can be a problem, so I feel like a hybrid work environment should be something that more employers should be open to for the right candidates. I think it's something that our generation needs to earn and not just automatically be given, because there are a lot of people in my generation who take advantage of that. I've had coworkers who were quickly let go because they forgot to, stay active on WebEx or Teams. And you could see that, it's kind of like they don't really think about what they're trying to hide. So to that point, there needs to be a balance, but that balance is something you need to earn because it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's very selfish to think you're entitled to that benefit if you haven't shown your employer any reason to provide it, And to the AI point, when I was in college, I had a lot of friends who started doing their book reports and, their homework using AI. And that, to most is a bad thing because it could be perceived as cheating. Inherently it is cheating. You're not doing your own work. But at the end of the day, who's commanding that in AI to spit out that information? So I feel like if we start doing more curriculum basis to how to navigate and how to control AI, I think you could see a shift and an evolution in our education system. Because if we start seeing AI as this tool, as opposed to this resource is going to be detrimental to humanity, like a lot of people are, taking that approach on, it could be pretty resourceful. Like, take the internet, there was a time where we'd have to go into libraries and open up a book and sit at that, desk and flip through page. And that was very time consuming. And to Brandon's point earlier, he said, now everything's easily accessible and AI is really making everything accessible. So I don't really see a problem if you give someone a very particular assignment, tell me about a time of XYZ about this specific topic, and AI spits it out for you. Because if you don't give it the right information, it's not going to spit out what you need. It's not going to give you the information you need. So you're still going to fail that book report. You're still going to fail that assignment because you're not getting the right information to present to the class. So yes, it's technically cheating based off of technicality. But if we were to use it more as a tool and not as a source
Or means to an end.
Yeah, or a means to an end, I think there would be an evolution in things like our education system and the way we work on a day-to-day with our employers and just the way we go about life in general.
Right.
I agree with that. I'll say it's like use your powers for good, like a superhero.
100%.
Exactly.
100%. At the end of the day, we can tie all this together. Generational divide and working from home and working at the office, AI, it comes down to one thing, efficiency. What is the most efficient? What are you going to, how can you maximize your time? How can you be the most productive? How can you get the right things done within the right timeline? So I think working from home, the conversation of COVID made a lot of things easy for us. Everything. We now have quick service restaurants. We have DoorDash that is who knows how much they have grown since COVID started. You have all of these ways to get things quick, right? Efficiency. Do you work from home now? I'm working, you know, I might be working hard for 4 hours, and then maybe I can take an hour for myself. Efficiency. If you're getting the job done, if you're doing what is needed to be done, I will say that I'm not sure considering all morals, I think morals, you know, do things the right way, be a good person always, right? But if you're getting things done, why does it matter? If you're completing the task, why does it matter? Why do I need to be at the office? Because, you know, you made a point about mental health. I think that is one thing about this generation that is actually, you know, people's eyes have opened up, and we are starting to realize mental health is a really important topic, right? And I'm not gonna like say, hey, I need to be at home, work from home because of my mental health, you know. But I do think that plays a huge part of it. At the end of the day, it comes down to efficiency. If I can use ChatGPT to help me write a great caption, or help me, you know, make a blog or two, whatever it may be. I don't think, you know, you should use ChatGPT for blog writing or creative thinking, but I'm just trying to tie in the idea of use your tools. We are in an age where we have them. So, I mean, if I can work from home and I can be productive, if I can save the hour and a half of commute, if I can save the $100 or whatever, the $50 a week on gas, and I can get everything done and I can be successful, do it my way, you know?
I agree with that too, because I think time and efficiency is the very key point. You're buying your time back. So if I have to commute half an hour to work each way, that's an hour out of my day I'm spending in traffic.
Absolutely.
If I could find a way to do the job easier, I'm buying all of that time back rather than spending it doing something else. So to the AI's perspective, if you're using your powers for good, yes, it's a great resource. You're cutting down on the time it takes to do so many other things. You're taking time back from all the research that you have to do because you're getting answers right here, right now, in that moment, in real time. So I think that's a key. And then even for the mental health aspect, burnout is a huge thing in the work.
Absolutely, especially in your field, in the financial realm, like
Yeah.
that is like a high rate of, you know, mental, like, you know, unstableness of the like,
Right. So you're out analysis, so you're staring at a screen and you're going for 7, 8, 9 hours straight. That creates burnout. And why we bring back mental health into the conversation of, if I'm working from home, I can take 30 minutes to myself to go take a quick walk down the street, walk my dog, make a snack, come back. So we're working at our own pace. But I do agree in the hybrid strategy, depending what you're doing. It's a privilege to be able to do so if I'm in the office 2 days a week and I'm 3 at home. But as long as you're productive, you're hitting your numbers, you're doing what the task needs to be done, then it's a great free tool.
and it'd be beneficial to our employers who are in a higher generation, or are in another generation. You know, they're getting the maximum output. I do think that's where people could meet. And there's companies that have done so, companies that, you know, have banking and there's a lot of industry where you can work from home, you know, and it's not a problem.
To add to that, the company I work for, we're actually downsizing our office. We had a complex where we owned 4 buildings and we had a parking garage, and we just recently sold one of those buildings and cut the lease of our other, and now consolidating everyone to this one building. Okay, accounting's coming in on Mondays, FP&A's coming in on Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, you know, everyone's going to be in meetings, so we're going to leverage our second building because of the extra conference room, so everyone can get, you know, meetings done and be efficient. But on Fridays, it's pretty much a ghost town. And, you know, the financial analysis behind that decision was actually relatively simple. Why are we paying for 4 buildings when a lot of these people want to be working from home, can work from home, and are, you know, been proven to, you know, if they're capable enough, to actually get the job done efficiently and accurately.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense from a cost perspective. It makes sense from an efficiency perspective, and there's a lot of benefits to a hybrid work environment. But again, it's something that needs to be earned. It doesn't apply to every industry and every corporation. I feel like everyone needs to evaluate what works for them and find that happy in between. But there are a lot of advantages to a hybrid work environment.
Wow. You guys made great points, and I think this is what's so unique about your Generation Z, or Gen Z, I meant to say. Gen Z is known to be outspoken, to be more likely to speak about mental health. This is not something we see with the older generations. So mental health is a big problem that, you're right, you know, burnout and pretty much in any industry you can think of, but it's always swept under the rug. Your generation is the one, I must applaud you that you've come out and really been outspoken and said, listen, we care about our mental health. We care about how we feel. And so the older generation didn't grow up to be outspoken and to come out and say that. So I think for them, this is like a shock. It's like, whoa. It's like, but this is why we're having this conversation. They're feeling the same thing you're feeling. They always felt the same thing you're feeling, but they never said it. But I think by having that conversation, and therefore for them to understand why you're doing or why you're saying what you're saying, they start to think about it differently. But again, just to your point, it's about compromising, coming to that middle ground. Like, okay, this is what I'm worried about. I know this is your objective. This is my objective. How do we get this stuff done? Efficiency is a key. You're right. That, just like you said before, this hybrid works for some people, not for everybody. Some jobs, it doesn't work. I can't do hybrid from home as a physician. No. I mean, it just doesn't work. As what you do, yes, you can. So there are certain jobs that require, a wellness center. If someone's coming in to have Botox, or you can't do that from home. I mean, you can't do it remotely. So that's how you can do from home.
I want to bring up a point too, because even from your profession too, they have adapted ways where work from home does work. Because teledoc, for example, you can be with your physician now via web conference.
Yeah.
Well, you could. I mean, there are some. I do web conferences and stuff with occasionally, because there is something about you sitting in front of a patient, touching that patient, examining the patient. If a patient has an infection of your gallbladder or his gallbladder, and they're home, there's no way you're gonna feel that. But if they're in front of you, examine them, you touch, you push the belly, you can determine that they have infection. So there are some times where we use web conferences for a routine follow-up. But when somebody has an illness or active problem going on, they need to come in. So actually examine them. They could have a rash on their back that you can't see during a web conference. So there are it's a hybrid. There are situations where we can do that. So technology definitely is a great tool. It's help us move along, and it's supposed to create that efficiency if we use it correctly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say when you were mentioning like ChatGPT and how you can, create blogs or a caption with it. Like, these are really, really great tools, but and we constantly hear people saying, oh, these are good tools. Like the older generation is judging us because, these are good tools. Yeah. But I don't see a lot of people using it correctly. Like, you'll see people do essays for college, right? But they won't be doing the research beforehand. Like you said, like, you can do research and ChatGPT won't spit out anything that you don't tell it to do. Like, you're going to fail your essay. But I don't see anyone actually using it correctly. Like you can use AI, but obviously the older generation is going to judge us if they see that we're not using it. For example, people are using AI to write resumes, but they don't even take the time and say, hey, write on this resume that I have so many years of experience in this job, and from this year to this year, they'll tell, ChatGPT, and then on top of that, they'll use a free version, which is really, really not good, and then it's very generic. So your resume is going to come out the same as his resume. And it's true. People aren't using it correctly. I use AI in forms of creative inspiration. For example, how can I make this video idea better? Or how can I say this in a better way, but I'll write it first. You really write that paragraph first and say, is there any way to make this better? Or is there any grammar errors?
Live your idea, your picture. Yeah, grammar is a big thing.
Grammar's a big thing too. You can put a whole essay, it'll have 10,000 words, and you can spit it onto ChatGPT. Obviously the Pro, I will definitely say that it's so much more better to use the Pro, because it will give you those correct, okay, here, there's in this paragraph or after this word count, there's this error. But if you use the 3.5, the regular one, it's going to give you the same thing. It tells everyone. And on top of that, it'll lie to you. It really lies to you. It'll be like, you don't have any errors on that essay. And then you'll give your professor that essay. And then your professor's going to read through it. Be like, why are there so many grammar errors? And what are you going to tell your professor? Oh, ChatGPT 3.5 told me there weren't any errors. You don't do that, you really got to go through it. Even when I use it to double check my work or double check anything I do, spelling is a really big part of what we do. I really do try to make sure that it's actually good, but they're definitely really, really good tools, and I am one to use them sometimes. But I definitely think that we actually have to like start practicing what we speak and actually use it in a good way. You know, actually use it in a way where, you know, what we're saying that, oh, but you can use it in a good way. Well, actually start doing it. Because like you know, you're an employer, and I'm sure you've seen resumes that you might not even notice that are from AI, but then you'll be like, oh, why was his so similar to the one I saw 3 weeks ago? You know, it's really about using it actually the correct way.
So that's a good point. We're running out of time, and we're gonna end this portion of the podcast. We'll come back again to the next part, where we're gonna be talking about the psychology of relationship in Gen Z. So stay tuned. Come back.